Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Shaw Local Chicago Bears reporter Michael Dwojak here with Northwest Herald sports reporter Joe Aguilar. It is Tuesday morning. A lot has happened since the last time we spoke with you guys. Monday Night Football, Bears opened the season against the Minnesota Vikings. If you're joining this podcast or if you're joining our live stream right now, I feel like I don't need to tell you what happened in this game. But obviously the Bears lost their season opener 27-24, gave up an 11-point fourth quarter deficit late into that game. And we're just going to break it all down for you folks here. If you're joining us on the live stream, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I see we've got comments going. The chat is bumping. So thanks so much to everyone who's joining us on the live stream. Make sure you chime in and give us any of your comments or thoughts about what happened last night. And if you are joining us on the live stream, make sure to give us a like. That's the best way to support us and help this podcast grow. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you check us out on the live stream. Sometimes we'll be updating. We usually talk the day after the game. So make sure you're checking out our social medias to know when we're going to be doing our live stream if you want to join the conversation. But Joe, things started so well. There's all these emotions. Obviously, you got the flyover. Offense looks great. Defense looks like the 1985 Bears defense, and then the fourth quarter happens, Joe, and we're back to reality here.
I don't. Is it too late to change my prediction from what I've been saying the last 8-9 shows we've done? I'm almost speechless. Michael, I'm one of these guys, like, I've got to see it before I can critique it kind of guys. Like, that's why, like, preseason predictions, whether it's the Bears, NFL, high school, like, I got to see it, the product first, and then I can say, aha, or aha. And it was like, oh, no, because now I've seen it. And all the criticism with Caleb Williams, we'll get into it. Because I'm like, maybe there's more fan in me because I'm like, I believe in him. I'm rooting for him. He's gonna crush it this year. He's got the right coach. And I saw too much of the disturbing stuff again last night. But we'll get into it. But that's my opening comment. Pay no attention to what I've said the last 3 months.
Yeah, just retract all of that. Retract the season predictions. Forget about that.
Everything.
Obviously we know. It's one game. One game doesn't determine your entire season. There have been plenty of, teams that have looked terrible in their season opener and regrouped. And, I know we're not going to be here to tell you that the Bears season's over, Caleb's a bust, and all that sort of stuff. If that's what you're looking for in a podcast or in a live stream, we're not going to take you down that rabbit hole too far. But listen, there are things to critique, and we're going to talk about it, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So if you're joining us for the first time, thanks so much for joining us, obviously. But usually for these game recaps, we like to do 3 winners and 3 losers. Before we do that, I feel like we need to talk about pretty much what happened in that fourth quarter. Bears, probably have their best, drive since their opening drive late in the third quarter. They get down to, I think it was the Minnesota 24. And then you just, you got a penalty. I think it was a false start penalty or a holding penalty, moves the ball back. Then you have Caleb Williams throwing the ball away, but the ball doesn't go to the line of scrimmage. So that's an intentional grounding penalty. Then you have Cairo missing a 50-yard field goal to the right. And then that just kind of opens things up for the Minnesota Vikings. I think that gave them a juice that they were looking for. J.J. McCarthy finally settles in, and kind of, I think Kevin O'Connell we'll get into this, but I think Kevin O'Connell did a great job in the second half, and he just adjusted. He saw what J.J. could do, what he couldn't do, and he adjusted to that, and he really put him in really good spots to, score 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. And I think that really shocked the Bears, and, they had a chance, late in the game, and we'll get into all that. But Joe, I think the biggest thing is, for all we talked about, a different attitude, more disciplined, for, being coached better and that sort of stuff. And there, everyone's responsible. I think it was really, telling that Ben Johnson, one of the first things he said at his press conference after the game is, he said that the coaching wasn't good and that he took full responsibility for that. And he very clearly put the blame on himself and his coaching staff for, not maybe making the right choices sometimes and that sort of stuff. But, for all the talk of the offseason about how everything's kind of looked different and it's going to be different. I mean, it just seemed like the same old show from last year. Like, I was talking to some reporters after the game and I was like, can we just write the same, just take our story from last year and just change some names? Like, it just felt like we were seeing the same thing we saw all over last year.
Well, I'll say this about Ben Johnson. I really don't he wasn't perfect, and I appreciate him owning it, taking accountability, saying it was his fault. I think he had said, we looked like a team that wasn't well coached. How long did it take Matt Eberflus to start, owning some of that stuff last year? And I don't want to keep revisiting 2024, 2023.
Some would say he never did.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember it. I don't remember taking accountability, but
finally, the Washington game where he finally okay, or it was one of those games they blew late, and he was finally like, okay, yeah. It's like when my daughter says, yeah, I'm sorry, the eye roll. It's like, you're not sorry. So I really don't have a problem with him. You got to get rid of this kicker. I mean, and I'm not saying that's the biggest problem on the team. This kicker shouldn't have been on the team last year. I don't care if he's consistent from 35 yards every time. Hey, this kid from Minnesota drills a 59-yarder that looked like he could have made it from 70. We've seen this time and time again. So Santos squeaks in the 42-yarder, misses the 50-yarder. I think Ben Johnson's probably going to go for it on fourth down a lot. Because you don't trust the kicker. And I've covered high school. You've covered high school football. There are some teams, Michael, that won't kick a field goal from the 15-yard line down 2 points. It could be fourth and goal from the 15 because they don't have a kicker. Yeah. They just say, well, we got to go for it. We got to go for it every time. That's going to factor into this decision until you get this right and get a guy who can kick the dang ball more than 42 yards. So that's an issue. But Ben Johnson, and then at the end of the game, he can't kick it out of he's supposed to kick it out of the end zone. That's not on Ben Johnson. He probably thought, kick it out of the end zone. Everyone can't. Well, your kicker can't. And maybe he's got to learn about his personnel a little more. And even Caleb, I'll save some of that later, but there's so many when we're talking about three winners, 3 losers. I'm thinking, how am I going to come up with 3 winners here? It's a tough task here. So.
That was a regular tough one for Sean and I last year.
Oh my God.
There are a lot of games we struggled with 3 winners, but let's dive into it. I mean, let's just get into things. 3 winners, 3 losers. Since it's a loss, I guess we'll start with the losers, and then maybe we'll end on a high note, obviously, with the winners toward the end. But Joe, who's your first loser from yesterday's game?
The kicker. This is not just a knee-jerk reaction, overreaction, because we'll all overreact. We all do that, and especially with NFL games when it's once a week. I'm done. I'm just done with him. Bring in somebody else. Bring in someone. And Torrey Taylor, the kid can kick it from here to the moon. Can he kick off? How can you not learn to kick off with that thunder leg? Can't he kick off, Michael? I don't get it. The kicker's got to go starting today. At what time is it? 10:09.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because obviously, heading into the season, he talked about how he kind of changed some things up, and heading into the year, I kind of had. Listen, he's one of your best kickers in franchise history. I think he passed Robbie Gould already, and I think he's one of your most accurate kickers of all time. I mean, let's not forget where the Bears were, before Cairo Santos. And I listen, I understand all the complaints. And, I got a chance to talk to Cairo after the game. He said that, everything, the snap, the placement, everything was right. He just didn't execute on that 50-yard field goal. It just went wide right. And on that kickoff, so just for people who maybe weren't, totally paying attention, Bears score a touchdown late. There's 2:02 left in the game. They have one timeout left. And I thought it was really smart for the Bears to score quickly because they got it at 2:02. So they would get the 2-minute stoppage. And then they were going to kick it off. And then, Cairo kicks the ball off, and then it goes into the end zone. And the Minnesota Vikings wisely return it instead of, kneeling in the end zone because obviously they want to run the ball out. And then I think it goes to 1:57. So you lose a 2-minute stoppage. So talked to Cairo after the game. He said the plan was to kick it out of the end zone, obviously to force the touchback. Ben Johnson said that was the plan. They were hoping to kick it into the back of the end zone, and then that way they would get if they got a 3-and-out, they would get the ball back with roughly like 50 seconds left in the game, and you can do something like that. And the Bears ended up not doing that, and they ended up getting the ball with 9 seconds, and they had to go 80 yards. The one thing I'm kind of wondering about that, obviously, your kicker needs to execute there, right? But is that a moment where your coach should know that your kicker maybe can't hit? Like, it isn't a new thing that Cairo can't kick to the back of the end zone. Like, that's been one of the people's complaints about him. So is that a rule? Is that a moment where you're like, kick it out of bounds, and then, sure, it'll cost you 5 yards, but then then you don't lose any time. The one thing with that, and I was looking around and I couldn't find it anywhere online. I don't know whether the Vikings could decline that penalty and then just keep making you kick. So I think eventually, I think the Vikings could potentially decline the penalty and you just keep re-kicking all the time. I don't know exactly what the rules are specifically for, the limits of that kind of stuff, but it was very clear that the Bears' plan was to kick it to the back of the end zone. And listen, Cairo at the end of the game, said I had moments to help my team and I didn't execute at the end of the game. And he took ownership for that. And how much that matters for Bears fans, I don't know. I know Cairo Santos isn't a big fan favorite amongst Bears fans, but yeah, I mean, those were two really critical plays that you just really needed him to execute, because if it hits that field goal, it's a tied game. And then if he hits the back of the end zone, you could potentially maybe have a scenario where you have a minute left to try to go for the game winner or at least tie the game.
Yeah, look, and I think fans understand it's like when we criticize a player, or I criticize a player, any reporter does, any fan does. It's nothing personal. I'm sure if you know Cairo Santos personally, I'm sure he's a great guy. He's a team captain. He's a league veteran. He's highly respected. I get it. He's not a bad dude. I just don't want him as my kicker anymore. And I understand the accuracy. But even last year, Michael, I don't think he was as good as he had been before. And I know kickers can kick until they're 70 years old. I mean, some of these guys just last forever. I mean, geez, Prater just did it the other day for Buffalo. I mean, I still remember him beating the Bears with, Mitch Trubisky's rookie year in Denver. I mean, the guy's been doing it forever. He's always had a big leg. So and even at the end of the game, getting back to the last night's game with Santos, even if he kicks it on a bounce, I don't know if they win anyway, because the offense had I don't know how the offense looked that broke in the second half. I mean, they come out, they have the ball, you're up at halftime, and Caleb throws 3 incompletions in a row? What? I mean, that was like, boom, let's seize control of the game here. You got the football, let's go. And 3 incompletes, and it's like, there's the air under the balloon, thing going on there. That was a bad sign. So at the end, I don't know, Michael, how is he? Even Caleb, we'll get to it. I'll wait.
Well, that'll go into my first, to my first loser, and that's Caleb's accuracy. It's not.
Yep.
We talked about it, for the whole training camp. Ben Johnson's been asked about it, his deep ball accuracy, finding wide open guys. And, Ben Johnson's tried to explain it and he's tried to work through it with him. But listen, it's not good. It's not, it's something that we've seen in training camp. There are some plays, especially in the fourth. I'm probably midway. I'm rewatching the game right now, and I'm at the part where Nahshon Wright just intercepted a pass and everyone's great and everything's looking good. And I'm like, oh, the rest of this game isn't going to be good. But the passes were just, there's some passes where you just look and you're just like, what is wrong there? I understand that Brian Flores is pressuring you. The pocket collapsed a couple times, but he wasn't sacked until, the fourth quarter. And some of that was because of his scrambling ability. And I think he did a good job with that. But man, if you just look at it, and listen, I understand it's easy for me to play, Monday or Tuesday morning quarterback up in the press box where I can see everything. And, I'm not getting, almost crushed by 300-pound dudes. I understand all of that, but I'm also not the franchise quarterback of the Bears. And you need to hit on some of those throws. There was just some 5-yard passes, screen passes that are just overthrown, not even close. And that's got to be a concerning thing, right? That's not, we can get into Caleb is missing the open guys. That's a concern too, but that can be something where you just kind of work through your progressions and maybe you can work on that and you can calm them down and you can kind of get through that. But some of the ball accuracy is just not good. And, I'm not a quarterback guru. I don't know whether it's the footwork. I'm not entirely sure whether it's, his throwing motion, but there are just some passes where you're just kind of looking, you're like, you give a receiver a chance, and he's not giving his receivers a chance a lot of the times.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, can I give you my second was it loser or bad thing of the
Sure, yeah, sure.
Because mine would be Caleb too. And Mike, I'll tell you what, even the opening drive, which thank God they didn't go 3 and out, right? Because that would have been, we talked about that a few shows ago, how bad that would have, how loud it would have got with the boos at Soldier Field if they'd gone 3 and out on the first drive. But even that drive, which was nice, right? 10 plays, 61 yards, eat up a little less than 5 minutes on the clock.
Sure.
He gets the nice 9-yard run to the pylon. He looked fast. But even that drive, like he was holding the ball. It was like check down. He was looking, check down to DeAndre Swift. Looking, check down. I want to boom. I'm not expecting Josh Allen and Sunday Night Football. I mean, wow, that was something. I'm not expecting that, but I just thought it would be more. This is why This is why there's so much Tyson Bagent love, right? This is because Bagent goes in there.
No, don't start that.
I know. But this is why. Like it looks different. And Bagent, he's got the 82-mile-per-hour fastball. That's just not going to cut it.
Yeah,
that's the knock, and we see it because Caleb's got everything going on there skill-wise. The big arm, the elusiveness. I mean, some of those sacks he alluded last night. What? How'd you do that? It was silly, but the whole game was just holding the ball. Guys not catching the ball in stride. Like, where's the yak, which we love? Where's the yards after catch? Where was that? Was there maybe a couple plays where we had that? And that's why, like I mentioned in past podcasts, like he just has to be okay. Like get it in the hands of these skilled receivers. We saw again how good DJ Moore is when he gets the football in his hands and his ability to catch the dang ball. Like get the ball in his hands on the run. Adunze, Loveland, let's go. Luther Burden. And guys will make plays because they're so skilled. We didn't see that. And then that's like, it's like if you're a fast guy and we're taking off your shoes and putting you in, I don't know, baggy pants. Well, how fast can you run? You're just crippling that. You're like negating the skill of your skilled set of receivers and tight ends. And so it all starts with the quarterback. Like that's the first time it's ever been said in the history of the game. It starts with him. And if he can't get it going with those guys, that skill set of a group of receivers, it's not going to happen again. And I know it's week 1 and we got 16 more left. And he wasn't horrible last night. If I were giving him a grade, I wouldn't give him a D. But maybe it would be. It'd probably be a C-. I don't know. I just the overall numbers, he threw for 210, was it maybe? The touchdown, no picks. Again, that's good, but not finding guys. I don't want to do check down. It's not what this. You don't win in the league playing check down, throw it to your running back and get 7 yards. It's just you can't do it.
Yeah, it's just watching the broadcast from last night, I feel like Troy Aikman just consistently keeps saying, in my rewatch, just Caleb didn't see this guy. Like Caleb, Caleb's not finding his receiver right now. And again, I understand it's a Brian Flores defense. He's pressuring you.
Sure.
I think the offense, Ben Johnson, I feel like did a good job of, putting Cole and Colston. He even, we even saw Theo Benedict in there as a 6th offensive lineman, and he put him in motion, which I was like, we're putting offensive linemen in motion. Let's calm down here. It's week number 1, but but for the most part, I feel like Caleb had a relatively clean pocket most of the time.
Yes.
Was it perfect all the time? No. And I don't expect it to be against the Brian Flores defense. Like they've got studs on that defensive line. We've talked about it, but there were just some moments where the pocket was clean, or he had time and the throw was just off, or he just didn't see the receiver and he settled for the 2 or 3 yard pass instead of going for the 15-yard pass to Rome Odunze or DJ Moore. So I agree. Is this something you can fix quickly? Is this something that you can, work on with your game plan? Maybe. But it'll be interesting to see what changes the Bears decide to make as they get ready for the Lions here in week 2. And that kind of goes into my second loser that kind of played a role. The Bears didn't have a running game yesterday. And that is kind of hard to want Caleb to make these types of plays when the Vikings are not really worried about the run. I mean, Caleb led the team with 58 rushing yards off of, 6. They were all scrambles. There were no design runs. DeAndre Swift had 53 rushing yards for 17 carries. DJ Moore got 3 carries. He got 8 yards. Kyle Monangai played in the game. He actually had a catch, but he didn't have a carry. So we'll see. We didn't get a chance to ask Ben Johnson that after the game yesterday. Maybe we'll ask him later today whether, maybe Kyle wasn't at full strength to run the ball. I was kind of curious about that decision. But, Joe, I mean, when a defense knows you're not going to run the ball, it's kind of, it's kind of easy to defend you, isn't it? And,
yep.
Looking back in real time, I was kind of like, man, there are no holes for DeAndre Swift. And looking back at it, I don't feel like obviously the Vikings have a really good run defense as well. But, for as much, hate or, as much as a hard time you want to give DeAndre Swift, I mean, there are a lot of times where there were no holes. There were just guys who were swarming him at that point.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually, watching the game without looking at the stats, I thought DeAndre Swift had a pretty good game. He was consistent. Then I looked at his numbers at the end of the game, and they're, the rushing yards average is, less than 4 against 3 point something. But you need the other back, and you need the pounder, especially late when, they when you just need it's third and short. Everyone knows the big boy. He's getting the ball. Here we go. Stop us. We don't have that guy. I'm not even going to go Roshan Johnson was out. That would have solved everything. So I'm not even sure if he's the guy, honestly. But they need another guy who can complement Swift, because I do think DeAndre Swift is a good football player. He's not great, but he's good in space. I like him catching the football in the backfield. He can make guys miss it. We know the scouting report on him, but they couldn't run the ball again. And I don't know, unless you're one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, they all need you need that. You got to be able to run the ball, and that was still lacking, just like years past.
Yeah, I think you really missed Roshan Johnson, right? Roshan Johnson very clearly is I'm going to bully my way through for 2 or 3 yards. I'm going to, he's your goal line back. And he was showing that he can kind of do that for you in training camp. But this foot injury, again, he's just dealing with injuries for most of his career. And it's one of those tough scenarios where it's just kind of can you rely on him for these moments? And Kyle, obviously, we'll get more on him. I thought it was interesting, the Bears, when they activate guys from their practice squad, happens a little bit earlier in the day. It happened around 3 p.m. And it was interesting to me that the Bears didn't activate Britton Brown. And, at that point, I was kind of Roshan Johnson was back at practice on Saturday. He was in limited fashion. I was like, is Roshan healthier than we think, and he's going to be able to play? But the Bears instead decided to have 2 running backs, but really they had 1 running back in DJ Moore. So that was an interesting thing for me. I was very curious just to see, just to know what that thinking was, because very clearly you have a depleted room, and I think Britton Brown has shown you that he can pick up a few yards here and there. So that was really interesting, and I guess we'll have to get more insight about that from Ben Johnson, just what the thought process was about only having 2 running backs in your room and not playing one of them for most of the game. All right, Joe, one last loser from you.
I'm just going to say it's really not a particular player. Maybe I'll go Jonah Jackson. But just the pre-snap penalties again, which I really thought would be cleaned up. We always point to, that's coaching, the pre-snap penalties. I don't know. Sometimes is it? I mean, Jonah Jackson, stop moving. I mean, that's one of your big moves in the offseason. We really haven't talked about him much. Again, I'm not going to sit here I know guard play, Michael. I've studied it for 30 years. I know guard play. But I know when the car's clunking, I don't know if it's a spark plug or it needs an engine overhaul. I just know it's broke. You got to fix it. So I'll say this: you can't have the pre-snap penalties. He had 2 in the first half. He wasn't the only one. It was all over. You can't do that. You can't do it. Good football teams don't do that. You're a bad football team if you keep doing that. Again, 1 week, we'll keep saying that it's only one game, but that's got to be cleaned up fast. Actually, I think it did get a little better in the second half. I don't know if they had truthfully a pre-snap penalty on offense in the second half. They had a hold. That was a weak call on Darnell Wright. That's terrible. But they got to clean that up, because once you go from 1st and 10 to 1st and 15 or 2nd and 10, everyone knows it kills you. And this offense is not driven by Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Jordan Love. You're still figuring it out. And that stuff just, it cuts you, it hits you in the wrong spot, if you know what I mean. That's a shot to the wrong area for your offense. That can't happen. So that needs to be tidied up. They've been saying that since they opened camp, but it does. And it hurt them last night, because even though all that was in the first half, most of it anyway, you could have built on that lead. Should have built on that lead. You give up the late field goal, all of a sudden, dang, it's a game. And you think, Bears are in good shape. They look good. They look in control of this game. And then we know what happened through 4 in that fourth quarter. Woo, that was a doozy.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, those penalties at the end of the third quarter cost you a chance, at least at the end zone, if not a better field goal. Like, if you don't have that holding penalty, and then if you don't have that intentional grounding, like, if you can't pick up the first down, Cairo has a 35-yard field goal, which is much easier than a 50-yard field goal. So, and that's a 20-7 game. So, I mean, I'll piggyback off of you. I think just penalties in general were bad yesterday. I mean, they were called for 12 penalties for 127 yards. I agree. All the offensive pre-snap stuff, it's carried over from training camp. It hasn't looked good since, I thought in the second or third week of training camp, they got a little bit better on that aspect. They looked a little bit cleaner. They were doing a better job. And then the last few weeks of training camp, it just kind of came back. And clearly it was an issue in Monday night's game. But some of the other penalties, like the Nahshon Wright, he had the great interception, was great. He had that PI, which moved the ball like 40 yards down the field. And then the Vikings ended up getting a field goal. I was just watching that the Dio Dangbo roughing the passer penalty. I don't know. That could have been. I thought that he was just, what is he supposed to do? Stop. Maybe he could go a little bit lower and avoid the head area. I thought that was a little bit tough. I agree. The Darnell Wright holding penalty, I've seen that clip a couple of times. I don't know how that's holding. I think the referees had a little bit of a hard time, but that's not the reason why they lost the game. And the penalties were bad. They were not good. And you need to clean it up. And it's something that we talked about, right? Like, that was supposed to be something that this coaching staff was supposed to coach out of this team. They were supposed to be more disciplined and do a better job. And you didn't see that. And can that get fixed? Yes. Cole Kmet said, we're going to work on it, and we're going to, hone in on the details and that kind of stuff at practice. But eventually you just got to stop doing it in practice, because if you stop doing it in practice, it's not going to, a lot of the times, if you're doing it little in practice, maybe you do it a little more at the game just because it's a game setting. But if you're doing it a moderate amount in practice, you obviously are going to do that during games.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can coach it out of some players. I mean, again, I've never played offensive line, but I don't know what caused you to do that. Is it just lack of focus? Is it mental? Is it just not knowing the cadence, or I don't. It seems like a lack of focus. Can you really coach that on of people? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not maybe a school teacher could answer that better. Necessarily even like why can't certain kids pay attention and focus and be locked in for 5 to 10 seconds that you really need to be? I don't know, but you're still working on that. Like, it's not a skill, is it? I guess it's a mental skill. So.
Yeah, it's some sort of preparation. You just need, it just needs to work out, and we'll see. Well, it'll be a major storyline for the Bears throughout the week, and we'll see what they're able to do. All right, Joe, let's move on to the positive side. Who's one of your winner from Monday night?
Can I have like 2 hours to think about this? This could be a tough one. 3 winners from last night. They only lost by a field goal. It wasn't like they got blown out 40-0. I should be able to come up with some positives
I'll
here.
I'll start off with one.
Okay, good.
I think
I might steal yours.
I think Dio Dangbo had a really good debut for the Bears. I think that he was for most of the preseason we didn't really see him that much. We were kind of like, all right, like Bears spent a lot of money on this guy. What do they really get out of him? And then I think he showed you that he can be a pressure. He got that sack over there. He had a big tackle for loss. He deflected a pass. He almost got a strip sack. If he only got there a little bit a second quicker. But I think things kind of dragged down for him like it did for the defense for the most part in the second half. But I think for the most part, Dio had a really good first game. I think he looked really good. He looked like he was worth the money that you paid him at the beginning during the offseason. And if he's able to play like that and Montez Sweat, plays better. I don't think he necessarily had a bad game yesterday. I just don't feel like we really called Montez Sweat's name as much. And that obviously could be because of, double coverage and that kind of stuff and, protecting him as much as possible. But I thought Dio did a really good job in his first game with the Bears.
That's a good one. And I won't steal that one, but I agree. To me, I noticed him. To me, that's the first thing. Like I was afraid, like, was he even on the field tonight? Was he active? No, he was. And he did a lot of good things. And I noticed him, and he was impacting plays. And, the roughing the passers as those happened, I didn't think it was like egregious. It wasn't, okay. But I'll give you that. I agree. I'll go with Dennis Allen. I know the fourth quarter, yikes, giving up 21 answered was really bad. But when I saw the inactives, I thought, oh, my goodness, here we go. When you had Roshan really kind of ticked me off because we were led to believe like, he should be ready. He should be ready week one. And when he came into camp and he had the non-disclosed injury. Okay, but, we're not too concerned, whatever the wording was. And then he doesn't play. He's not ready. But again, it's a long season. Don't rush him back with soft tissue injuries like that. Okay, so he's out. TJ Edwards, who never misses a game. I jinxed him. I did. I said that's why he's going to be my MVP of the Bears defense because he doesn't miss games. Are you taking
credit for that one?
I sadly, I'm going to run and hide. I'm embarrassed by it. I'm embarrassed by it because then he doesn't play. Well, that's a big loss. And then Kyler Gordon, who's so dang good. He impacts football games. He's out. And I'm thinking this is disaster. I know McCarthy is. I guess I don't know if they really consider him a rookie. He didn't play last year. To me, he should be a rookie. It should be a games played thing. They're gonna feast, or this is trouble even with McCarthy. But Dennis Allen called a good game. They got some pressure. Wasn't great, but they got some pressure. And the guys in the secondary, who's the McLeod kid? Like I totally forgot.
Yeah.
He wasn't even on the team. I thought you weren't hearing like him getting burned. So I think he did a good job. And then of course. Wright, Nashawn Wright, who, he had that bad pass interference call, as we mentioned in the first half, but then certainly making amends, jumping the route there, the pick six. That was huge. And at that point, it looked like the Bears have this game. Here we go.
That was your other touchdown. I mean, I know the Bears obviously scored a touchdown late in the game, but up to that point, that was your other score.
Yeah, so I'll give Dennis Allen because I saw a defense that looked coached up. And when you can survive with, arguably your two best defensive back players in Gordon and Jalen Johnson, and then TJ Edwards, your best linebacker out. I'm not, ultimately it's talent wins in most sports. It should anyway. It doesn't all the time, but it does. I'll give Dennis Allen credit. That's a winner from last night.
Yeah, and for my second winner, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of you. Okay. Justin Jefferson caught 4 passes on 7 targets for 44 yards. That's a huge win. One of the best, if not the best, wide receivers. I know he had a delayed training camp. I know that obviously he's not at full strength right now. He probably isn't. And part of that isn't his fault. Obviously, JJ McCarthy was pressured a lot, and maybe JJ didn't get the ball to Justin as much as possible, but anytime you can limit Justin Jefferson to 44 receiving yards, that's a A+ performance. So I thought Nashawn Wright and Tyreek Stevenson, I know they each got dinged for a PI call. but I don't think that. I think they held their own. I think they both showed you that they can. I agreed. As soon as I saw that, I had a few. Obviously, I didn't think TJ Edwards was going to play based on how the week kind of went. The last couple of weeks have gone. I didn't think that Jalen was going to play once I got to the stadium and I saw that he was, doing some work, and I was kind of like, that's not really a good sign. But when Kyler Gordon got added onto that, I was like, man, you're down 3 starters. This isn't good. And they showed up. They limited Justin Jefferson. They really did. There are a lot of tight coverages, I felt like, and I think that's a big win. I think your cornerback depth, that was a big question, and I think that showed to be a big win. So I agree with you there. All right, Joe, what's your last win there?
Boy, my last winner. Boy, I'm almost stumped. Well, I mentioned Nashawn Wright. I give him credit. Again, it was kind of half and half there, but you know what? You remember guys who make big plays, and the pick six was a huge play, and that's what you needed on so many levels. Not only to extend the lead, you get the crowd back into it. So that was a big play. But I'm going to go. I didn't see much on the O-line. I'll give the left side of the O-line a game ball, whatever we want to call it, a winner for tonight. Joe Thuney, I think the only guy in the offensive line who didn't do anything bad last night. We knew that. We knew how good he is. But the old pro, again, old lineman, when you don't hear their name, that's a good thing, unless they're like on the bench. So Thuney and all the concerns about, Braxton Jones, what are we going to do against this defense? And, oh, my gosh, they can't solve this competition. Did we hear his name last night? I don't think so. I don't think they probably give him some help on some plays. I'd have to go watch the
They did, yeah.
game over.
They helped him. I mean, they helped him a lot. Cole was there a lot. Colston was next to him a lot.
Well, but when we're dissecting this game, and everyone else who's dissecting this game nationally, locally, the fans at the water cooler today, they still have water coolers in offices.
Well, I don't know.
At the Keurig machine at the office, when they're discussing this game today, no one's bringing up that dang Braxton Jones killed us last night. No one's bringing that up. So I'll say that they held their own. That wasn't the story. We know what the story was. We've discussed them. Everyone's been discussing them. But the left side of the O-line, and I thought Caleb's pocket was pretty, I think you had mentioned at the start, was pretty clean last night. Again, when we're saying holding the ball, well, if you're doing that, your O-line is holding up. Your protection is holding up because that ball should be getting out, boom, and it wasn't, and still the protection was there. I think even Ben Johnson mentioned that in one of maybe it was the Kansas City after the Kansas City game, that brought up, and he's like, well, to me that means good pass protection. I'm like, okay, you're right. So I'll go with the left side. I kind of just came up with that the last second, Michael, but I'll go with the left side of the O-line, Braxton Jones and Joe Thuney.
I think you saw, I would agree with you. I think you saw the difference that Joe Thuney can make for Braxton Jones. And obviously, like we said, Ben Johnson threw in Theo Benedict. And, there was a question after the game, asked about, why weren't the tight ends used more? Why didn't we see more? That's my bad way of paraphrasing the question. But, I mean, the tight ends were used for protection in this game, right? Like you saw, and I think that can be a good. Like I think both Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland did a fairly good job protecting when they were called into block. There was one play, I think it was a deep throw to DJ Moore, where Cole Kmet pushed off Grenard, and Caleb was just able to get the pass off, and Cole did a really good job of blocking. So I would agree that left side looked really good. There was some protection there, but I agree you didn't see much of that at all. My last good, I guess I'm going to say on the defense for most of it, for a defense that gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter. But I think we've heard a lot about Noah Sewell throughout training camp. I think we heard a lot about, is this going to be the year he's going to step in? He's going to be the weak side. And without TJ Edwards, I think you saw him step up big. He was your lead tackler. He had 9 combined tackles. He had 7 solo tackles. He didn't have a sack or a tackle for a loss or pass disruption or something like that. But I feel like Noah Sewell was at the ball a lot. Like he got to the ball quickly. He stopped plays. And I think he did exactly what you needed to do. It could have been a lot worse with TJ Edwards out there. And I think Noah Sewell did a really good job stepping in for him. And I think he's kind of proven to you throughout training camp and in this week that he's your third linebacker. And, obviously you want TJ Edwards to be back in there. But I think Noah Sewell has proven to you that he's a very good backup, and you have a really capable replacement if TJ Edwards is out for much longer.
Yeah, I agree. He was noticeable. And I thought he showed a little. There were times where I thought, he's going to get beat on the edge there, chasing one of the running backs. And I thought he did pretty good. He was noticeable. I thought his speed looked hard to tell sometimes on TV, but looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him like whiffing on tackles and making stupid plays. So and again, he was. If you watched the game, you noticed him. That's a good thing.
All right, guys, we've got a few minutes here. Get your comments and chats in there. Rick's chiming in. Good to hear from Rick, for his winners, the fans, the anthem, and Dio. I don't know if the fans were winners. I mean, they lost, right? Or, unless you like the experience. I will say the the game experience was really good. The anthem obviously was really great. The flyover caught me off guard, obviously, but I feel like the atmosphere is really good. So yeah, I would retweet that. Homer Cuts, Braxton Jones did a great job. I agree with that. Who the heck is number 69? He's a beast. Tano, he got himself a sack, so that was a big win. He also said Sewell had a big game. Matt now chiming in, also saying that Noah Sewell filled in nicely for TJ. I'd give the nod to Nation Wright for Matt. I would agree with there. Homer Kutcher Edmonds continues to be a disappointment. I don't know if I would agree with that. He had a pass defended, a blocked pass there. I think the thing with Tremaine is, I think Tremaine's a really good athlete, and I think he's a really good player. I don't know. I think a lot of fans like to compare him to Roquan Smith, and the Bears obviously decided to not sign Roquan Smith, and they signed Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards. And would you love to have Roquan Smith on this team? Yes, but I think with me, the mindset always was that was the start of the teardown, and I don't think you were going to pay Roquan Smith what he wanted at the beginning of a rebuild. So I know that Tremaine gets a lot of hate a lot of the times, but I don't think he was a loser. I think he played pretty well, and I don't usually find a problem with him in these games. CJ chiming in with the loser, saying the sweat didn't spark like he needs to. I'll have to look back at the tape. I from what I noticed, there were some moments that he was almost there and he was about to complete the play. I think he is getting double teamed, but I think you need to hear more from him, right, Joe? Like, you need to hear more from Montez Sweat. You need him to do a better job than he's done. Like, he's your top paid pass rusher, and he needs to make a difference. And a lot of these top guys, get double teamed, and they figure out a way to get around it somehow. So I don't know whether it's Montez's path, his bull rush. Again, I'm not a defensive line specialist by any means, and I'm not going to pretend to be one of all the technique and that sort of stuff. But you need to see more from Montez Sweat, and we saw that in training camp. We saw that in the preseason games, and what did he end up having? Montez Sweat ended the game with two tackles for a loss and a pass disruption. So he was impactful, I guess. I guess you just didn't get the sack that you're kind of looking for from Montez Sweat.
Yeah, we talked about like Dio was. You noticed him. Sewell, you noticed him. Montez, I didn't notice him. Other than that pass breakup where he had like on the goal line, that was a big play there. Otherwise, like you said, Michael, you're paid. You're paid as a big sack man. Go get sacks. I don't care if you're triple teamed. Find a way. That other guy's got to be. Then your team better be getting 7 sacks because you created a lot of those with your pressure guys. 2 guys needing to stop you. So I need to see more. I'm not going to say, that was a bust contract or he's been bad. He just needs to be better. He needs to be elite because they're paying him to be elite.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Fair enough. It's the way it works.
No, it's kind of like the Caleb criticism, right? Like, it's like, do you put all the onus on the quarterback? No, like, obviously, like, it's a whole team, especially like this isn't basketball where one player can dominate and you change everything. But this is a quarterback league. The quarterbacks get the most money. The quarterbacks get all the pressure. That's just how it kind of works. So and that's how it works defensively, right? Like the pass rushers are your top paid defensive players, and you need them to perform in big moments. So Matt kind of brings up an interesting point here. Sweat's present by itself gives guys like Dexter and Dio an opportunity, but I agree, need more from Sweat. And I agree with that. I think you saw Trevon Dexter obviously had that sack on the first 3 and out. That was good. I think Grady Jarrett also kind of made himself known a little bit from the interior there. And I agree with that. I think that opens things up for other guys. And that's probably why you saw Dio have a good game. But you still want something out of him, right? Like, I don't think you can expect a 3-sack game, even, a 2.5-sack game, but you would like to have more of a pressure from Sweat. So we'll see how that kind of happens. But all right, Bears are going to, it's a short week for the Bears. They're back. They're not in the building today on Tuesday. We'll hear from Ben Johnson at 4:00. Then they get back to practice on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before they travel for Detroit in what should be a hostile environment, a homecoming for Ben Johnson. Joe obviously will be back with the folks on Friday to preview that game. But what, if anything, are you hoping to hear or see from the Bears over the next couple of days as you kind of look for more answers from the Minnesota loss, but also prepare for Detroit on Sunday?
Well, what I'd like to see is what I'm not going to see. I mean, there's really, like, let's bench this guy, let's bench that. I just like,
no.
I'd like to, that's not going to happen. Here comes Tyson Bagent. But I want to see kickers. I want to see kickers. I know they have the revolving, little bus of kickers and running backs. And they tour the league in a nice little bus, and they go around all the free agent guys, and they stop in every week. I want to see them. Like, we can say, let's be patient. It's 1 week. It's not be patient. The season goes by fast. At the end, it's always like there's a difference between 10-7 and 9-8. Like, this game was a killer. Maybe they don't make the playoffs anyway after what we saw last night. They kind of revealed themselves maybe as a team. But I'd like to see kickers in and acknowledging we got to be better in the kicking game. And I don't want to throw Cairo Santos under the bus too much, although I guess I have all show. But that's what I want to see. I want to see that, and I just want to see, like, hey, so-and-so is better health-wise, and get some of these guys healthy. Really, that's the big thing. Like, are we going in to get you said the short week, is Roshan out again? Or Jalen in particular? Is Kyler Gordon out again? I want to hear, like, I don't know if we're going to even hear that tomorrow, but I want to know those guys are that close and that they should be ready to go by Sunday noon kickoff.
Yeah, CJ kind of emphasized your point earlier in the live stream. Tryout should be for running backs and kickers. I don't know about the run. You got to see what the health of the running backs are. And also, like, I don't know what you're going to get. I don't think you're going to get much in the running back department at this point. Right. Maybe you'll find a guy or something like that. But
you trade. I mean,
well, you could trade.
A trade made yesterday. Someone got traded. And not that it's not like an all-pro running back is going to hit the market. But to me, it's you're right. Get the running back room healthy, and then we can go from there. But the kicker, I understand, is Cairo Santos is healthy.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It won't happen.
No,
it won't happen. But.
I agree with you. Like, obviously, it's an important game, but it's week 1. Like, I wouldn't go too crazy in week 1. Like this, the grand scheme of things are, this is game 1 in a new system for a new like a lot of new guys. And you can say they should have this all figured out in training camp. And listen, I'm not here to make excuses for professional athletes, right? Like, obviously you get paid money. This is your full-time job. I understand all that. I understand fans' complaints. I don't want to get into the whole, this is your job, do it, whatever. But there is the nuance of yesterday was the first game of a new coaching staff and a new offense, and guys are still trying to figure things out. And I think this is kind of what we talked about during our preseason predictions, right? Like, we knew September in the NFL is everyone is just trying to figure things out. No one is perfect. No one has it all figured out. Teams look bad that end up making the playoffs. Teams look good that end up missing the playoffs. That's just the nature of the beast. That's why we're so, addicted to the NFL, because you just don't know what you're going to get. But I think the biggest thing to watch, we'll watch. I think Jalen Johnson is close, and I think he probably, I don't know anything, but I do think that if he continues to practice this week, we'll likely see him against the Lions. Kyler Gordon, I'm not sure. TJ Edwards, I'm not sure. Those seem like soft tissue injuries that unfortunately happen and could linger for a little bit. Obviously, you want to nip those in the bud pretty quickly. But I think the biggest thing, and it's kind of cliche, a lot of high school coaches, football coaches like to tell me this, but the biggest thing they learn about their teams happen from week 1 to week 2, right? Like, how do you get back into the week preparation and what adjustments do you make? So I guess we're going to figure that out, right? Like, they've got 3 days. I think Wednesday's going to be a walkthrough, obviously, because they're still recovering from Monday night's game. But what are you doing in those meetings, and what are you doing in those limited practices that you have to prepare yourself for Sunday's game? Because Sunday's going to be a really tough environment. There's going to be a lot of emotions. Ben Johnson comes back home to where he became this prodigal, this ultra, competitive guy, great offensive genius. There's going to be a lot of emotions to Sunday's game. So how do you prepare for that? And I think these next 2 days are going to tell us a lot about this Bears team for the whole season.
Yeah, and I think Detroit, Green Bay handled them pretty well.
Yeah.
So do I fear Detroit as much as I did like a few days ago? No, they look like, you could beat them. But then again, the Bears, I don't know, Michael. Coach Ditka said, I don't know if we're capable of winning another game the rest of the year. A long time ago. I don't know. Got to see more, because it's like any team, right? You can say, oh, that opponent's coming up on our schedule. We can beat them. We can beat them. Yeah, but you're bad. Worry about yourself. Do your 111, as the high school kids always say. Do your 111. Take care of yourself first. Yeah. Then we'll see if you can match up against the Detroit Lions, the Packers, or the Hershey JV team. We'll see. I heard they're pretty good.
Yeah. All right, that's everything that we got for this week's episode. Once we're getting into JV football, I don't know. I feel like that might be our time to close this out. But thank you to everyone who joined us. Really, it was great to see all you guys. Good to get the chat going. If you joined us on YouTube, thanks so much. Make sure you like us, hit that button down there. We really appreciate it. That's the best way to support us. And if you're listening on the podcast and you're like, man, I want to be part of the conversation, I want them to answer my questions, make sure you check out our social medias. We'll post every time we're going to do a live stream. We usually do it on Monday and Friday morning, depending on the schedule. But obviously, make sure you follow us, and we'll let you know for sure when we're going to be talking about the Bears. Make sure you're following all of Joe's work at Joe Aguilar 64. He's got all your Northwest Herald, McHenry County sports coverage, so make sure you're following him. I know he's got a football notebook out there, so make sure you check it out if you're in the McHenry County area. And make sure you're checking out all of my work with the Bears. We've got our game story, Joe's 3 and Out, 5 takeaways. I'll have Bear Down and Nerd Up later today, and we'll hear from Ben Johnson at 4 p.m. today, and I'll have that covered. So make sure you're checking out all our work at Bears Insider. We'll have you covered with all that stuff. So thanks so much for joining us. Remember, everyone, take a deep breath. It is game 1. There's a long season to go, and just because what happens in week 1 doesn't mean what's going to happen in week 17. Take a deep breath, get some sleep, and we'll talk to you folks down the road.